Okay, so with the barrel to exact length, our next steps we're going to do is drill the hole. So we have a 1/2 inch hole that goes 4.25, 4 1/4 inches. And that's to the flat spot, not to the point. So the point actually goes a little deeper. But we are trying to get to a depth of 4 1/4 with our drill bits. So we're going to do this in a few steps. Now, some of you, depending if you have the brass kit or the steel kit, this could vary a little bit. If you're doing steel, like we are in the demonstration, we're going to start out with a spot drill, and this keeps our other drill bits going straight. I had better luck with spot drills as opposed to center drills, because in high school kids tend to break the small center drills. So I'm using a spot drill. You can use a center drill if you want. Next step is just going to serve as a pilot hole, and that's with the 5/16 drill bit. Now if you're using brass, you do not want to do the pilot hole. You're just going to go straight to the larger drill bit. That's a 31/64 drill bit. But with steel, it's going to help to have the pilot hole. If you did the pilot hole in brass, then it makes this larger drill bit want to catch, and it becomes really difficult to drill that hole in brass because it's so soft and it just wants to grab the drill bit and pull it in. Then we're going to countersink it just on the end of the hole, and then we're going to take the reaming bit to give us a perfect 1/2 inch diameter and a nice smooth bore. Okay, so let's get started with our spot drill. Notice on step 8 it wants us to adjust the RPM, increase the speed to 400 or so. So on our dial we're looking for 400. So there's 400 RPMs. We want to be on Y, and that's a high range speed. So we have that set to 400. Let's go ahead and place the barrel in. And at this point it doesn't really matter which end. Just pick an end that you want to have the bore in, and that will be the bored end of the barrel. And you're going to need to switch out, if you haven't already, the live center for a drill chuck. Alright, so back our live center out, put your drill chuck in. This particular drill chuck has a tang on it that needs to fit in the slot of the tailstock. So don't just start trying to ram it in there. Find the slot and then shove it in there. Put that spot drill back in so it's not too flexible. We'll lock our tailstock in place, and one other thing we'll need is some cutting oil for this. Okay. So with the spot drill, just put a little drop of oil on the tip, and all we're really doing with this is just going in just on the tip. We're not going to drill in any farther than that. So we can take the spot drill out. And we'll go ahead and put the 5/16 pilot drill bit in. We'll use a little more oil this time. Just going to try to run a string down that drill bit. We'll probably need to reapply as we get in deeper. So with this, I want to kind of peck away at it. I want to back it out so those chips can clear. Need to drill this the entire effective length of the drill bit. So as long as I have flukes, that's how deep I need to go with this one. It's not quite going to be long enough to get down to 4.5 inches, but the next size drill bit will be. To get in deeper, you need to back that out. Some more oil. for the next drill bit, typically a standard drill bit wouldn't be long enough. You might be able to get a standard drill bit that's longer, but in this case I'm going to use what we call a Morse taper drill bit. And I have the drill bit and then an adapting sleeve to fit the inside of the tailstock. Okay, so this is the 31/64 step. So I'll put that into the tailstock. Move this up. And this hole should drill quite a bit easier because we have the pilot. It wants us to also slow the RPM down because we have a bigger drill bit, bigger hole, bigger drill bit, slower RPM. So I'm going to cut that down to about 250 or so, or the closest thing to that. I have 275. This drill bit, we're going to need to drill just about every bit of the drill bit to get in 4 1/4 inch deep. So that's going to drill pretty easy until we hit the bottom of our smaller hole. So you might not need to back it out as often. Careful not to let those chips clog up. So take your time and one way to get pretty close to how deep you need to be. I'm kind of living dangerously there because I'm drilling in deeper than my flukes of the drill bit. So you gotta be real careful when you do that. That should be okay. So to check your hole, you can take the caliper, if you have a depth gauge on it, and try to hold it against the side walls of that bore, and see if you got in deep enough. This can vary some, but it seems that we're definitely in at least 4.25. That's on the edge of the hole, not to the point, but on the edge of the hole. So that's good for that step. We'll go ahead and switch back to a drill chuck and put our countersink bit Okay, on our plan it tells us that we want a 50 thousandths chamfer there at a 45-degree angle. So if you had a 90-degree countersink bit, that will give you a 45-degree angle. So we just want to, it's just a light depth to get rid of the burr on the edge of the hole basically, and to give it a little fancier look. Okay, so to go in 50 thousandths, there's a couple ways you can do that. One way is to use the dial. If your tailstock has a dial, you could use that. The other way, if you might have markings on the ram of the tailstock, or you could just visually try to guesstimate that. We're just basically going to have a smooth hole with no sharp edges and a nice look, right? So I'm going to run that countersink up to where it hits the edge of the hole without the machine running, and I'll zero this out, and I'll use that to go in the 50 thousandth step. I'm going to be careful, and I'm just going to go a little bit at a time and see if it looks right. So there's 25 thousandths on the dial, and that's probably because that should be 50 thousandths if we doubled that. So I think we're good if we go 25 on the dial, because that looks right to me, and that's what I'm going with. All right, so then we're going to switch to the reaming tool bit. That's this kind of funny looking tool, and what it has is just several sharpened edges on it there, and that's just going to feed in, and it's going to take that remaining material. We drilled it 1/64 of an inch under a ½ inch. So this is going to take it and make it exactly a ½ inch. So for this, we want to slow the RPM down. Our instructions want you to be at about 250 or so, and that's where we were for the drill bit. And we're going to use a good amount of cutting oil on there. And we're just going to feed this in nice and slow with our tailstock. We'll be able to feel when it hits the back of the hole, and then we'll feed it back out. Nice and steady, slow. be able to feel it get a little harder to move in as you hit the back of that hole, and that's where you want to back it out. Back it out just like you went in, nice and slow. Be able to see just a little bit of shavings in the flukes of that bit as it comes out. Okay, so that takes us up through step number 14.